Heart of Darkness is one of the most taught and most contested texts in the English literary canon. It is short, dense, stylistically challenging, and ethically complex. For teachers, it presents a dual challenge, helping students understand Conrad's narrative, symbolism, and themes, teaching the text critically and responsibly, particularly in relation to colonialism and race. In this video, I'll cover context and form, a structured overview of the story, major themes and interpretations, key controversies, practical strategies for teaching the novella today. Context: Conrad, imperialism, and the Congo. Joseph Conrad published Heart of Darkness in 1899, at the height of European imperial expansion. The novella is directly inspired by Conrad's own experience in the Congo Free State, which at the time was under the brutal personal rule of King Leopold II of Belgium. Key contextual points for students. The Congo Free State was the site of extreme exploitation and violence. European imperialism was often justified as civilizing or humanitarian. Conrad was both a participant in and a critic of imperial systems. Importantly, Conrad is not writing the documentary account. He is writing a psychological and moral exploration of empire. This distinction is vital for classroom discussion. Form and structure, frame narrative and voice. Like Youth, Heart of Darkness uses a frame narrative. We have an unnamed outer narrator aboard the Nelly on the Thames, Marlowe as the primary storyteller, a group of silent listeners. This structure creates distance and ambiguity. Teaching focus: students must understand that Marlowe is not Conrad. The story is mediated, subjective, and unstable. Conrad deliberately avoids a single authoritative voice. This makes the text ideal for teaching. Unreliable narration, perspective, interpretive uncertainty. Story overview, analytical summary. Marlowe recounts his journey as a riverboat captain for a Belgian trading company in Africa. The journey unfolds in stages. The company and the outer station. Marlowe encounters inefficiency, bureaucratic absurdity, casual cruelty. The so-called civilizing mission already appears hollow. The central station. Here, Marlowe hears repeated references to Kurtz, an exceptional ivory trader. Kurtz becomes a figure of reputation, mystery, obsession. The journey upriver. As Marlowe travels deeper into the interior, order dissolves. Language becomes symbolic. The environment feels increasingly oppressive. Kurtz. Marlowe finally meets Kurtz, who has abandoned European moral codes, established himself as a godlike figure, embraced violence and domination. Kurtz's final words, the horror, are famously ambiguous. The novella ends with Marlowe's return to Europe and his decision to lie to Kurtz's intended. Key theme 1, imperialism and hypocrisy. At its core, Heart of Darkness is a critique of imperialism, but not a simple one. Conrad exposes the emptiness of imperial rhetoric, the greed behind civilization, the moral decay of Europeans in Africa. However, Conrad does not present colonized Africans as full narrative subjects. This tension is crucial. Teaching point: Conrad critiques imperialism from within, not from an anti-colonial perspective. Students must grapple with both critique and limitation. This opens space for critical reading rather than moral certainty. Key theme 2, the darkness. Within darkness in the novella is not just geographical. It represents moral collapse, psychological exposure, the fragility of civilization. Kurtz is not corrupted by Africa. He is revealed by isolation and power. Marlowe realizes that civilization restrains but does not erase human impulses. Given freedom and authority, moral codes can disintegrate. This is where Heart of Darkness shifts from political critique to existential inquiry. Key theme 3, language. Silence and meaning. Language in Heart of Darkness is indirect, repetitive, often evasive. Marlowe frequently interrupts himself, questions his own words, admits that meaning cannot be fully conveyed. This makes the novella ideal for teaching modernist narrative techniques, the limits of language, symbolism over realism. Silence is as important as speech. Controversy, racism, and Chinua Achebe. No teaching of Heart of Darkness is complete without addressing Chinua Achebe's critique. Achebe famously described the novella as a book which celebrates dehumanization. Key teaching stance. Achebe is not wrong. Conrad's critique of imperialism coexists with racist representation. These tensions should be examined, not resolved. Best practice. Pair Heart of Darkness with Achebe's essay, or Things Fall Apart. Teach students to hold multiple truths simultaneously. How to teach Heart of Darkness today. Effective entry points. Narrative voice and reliability. Power and moral responsibility. Civilization versus restraint. Close reading focus. Descriptions of landscape. Kurtz's report. The intended scene. Discussion questions. Is Marlowe morally complicit? What does Kurtz represent? Why does Marlowe lie at the end? Assessment ideas. Analytical essay on narrative perspective. Comparative study with post-colonial texts. Reflective writing on moral ambiguity. Conclusion. Heart of Darkness endures because it refuses comfort. It does not offer clear heroes, provide moral closure, resolve its contradictions. For students, that difficulty is the point. When taught critically and thoughtfully, Heart of Darkness becomes a study of power, a warning about moral certainty, and a lesson in how literature can challenge, not reassure, its readers.
Suddenly there was a growing murmur of voices and a great tramping of feet. A caravan had come in, a violent babble of uncouth sounds burst out on the other side of the planks. All the carriers were speaking together, and in the midst of the uproar the lamentable voice of the chief agent was heard, giving it up tearfully for the 20th time that day. He rose slowly. What a frightful row, he said. He crossed the room gently to look at the sick man, and returning said to me, does not hear. What? Dead? I asked, startled. No, not yet, he answered with great composure. Then, alluding with a toss of the head to the tumult in the station yard, when one has got to make correct entries, one comes to hate those savages, hate them to the death. He remained thoughtful for a moment. When you see Mr. Kurtz, he went on, tell him from me that everything here. He glanced at the deck, is very satisfactory. I don't like to write to him. With those messengers of ours, you never know who may get hold of your letter at that central station. He stared at me for a moment with his mild bulging eyes. Oh, he will go far, very far, he began again. He will be a somebody in the administration before long. They above the council in Europe, mean him to be.